Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest rock and roll stories in the universe, all from the fans' perspective. It's Rock Stories with the Brummster. Now, here's the host of the show, my rockin' daddy, the Brummster.
From the fans' perspective and the mouth of babes there. Thank you, my son. Hey, you are in for a treat today. As always, from the fans' perspective, we give you a behind-the-scenes look at your favorite artist, concert memories, bands, music, you name it. Music lovers from around the world come on the program. All fans, super fans, if you will. And these fans, they have memories and great stories to tell, and we normally don't hear those. Don't get me wrong. I love the shows, with Alice Cooper or the dude from AC/DC going around, or Sammy Hagar driving his car around and talking with all the rockers. That's all great. But it's not from the fans' perspective. You get that right here. Real rock stories with the Brummster, available, by the way, at the Brummster. That's 2 M's, not 1. If you see just 1 M, get out of Dodge. 2 M's. Rock Stories with the Brummster, available at the Brummster Spotify channel. And also as well, great tunage, and I rock out there as well at rockradio559.com. You all remember from early on in this season, my Aunt Sue is part of a really cool fan group, a super fan group, if you will, called Fans on the Run. They follow Paul McCartney everywhere, but these folks love music and rock and roll, period, and they have so many cool stories to tell. And my Aunt Sue came on and hooked me up with some of her friends, and one of them is on the program with us today, my special rockin' guest, Jay Gepner. Welcome to Rock Stories with the Brummster, Jay.
All right, Brummster. Hello, world. This is great.
That's
Let's
awesome.
Talk rock and roll.
You guys love it, huh? So, real quick for the intro, I know you have a plethora of awesome experiences to share with us today, and I'm excited. Thanks for pulling back the curtain for us.
And
our listeners.
And anything for you, Josh, and your aunt. She's a sweetheart. So
now,
what a great thing.
In the intro, how did you guys meet? You part of Fans on the Run, right? So are you a part of it?
And, we're all Paul McCartney fans. We're all Beatles fans, and and I happen to be in a Beatle type band too. I'm in a few bands actually outside of my regular job, which is working at the airport. So, and that's how I met your aunt, and that was very nice for her to throw my name into this, because nothing more I love talking about than music, especially going to concerts and seeing these things, and it's just I love it, Josh. I'm looking forward to this.
It's a real passion of yours. It's a passion of mine, our listeners. And one of the cool things about Rock Stories with the Brummster is it's like a time machine, helping people to transport back in time with these stories. It's so cool. I mean, a song that you hear can just transport you back, right, Jay?
Oh yeah. A song, a memory. It's the greatest healing. I always tell people that music people, you know how to heal. You know how to take any type of happiness, or if you're feeling sad and you're suffering, you know what brings you back up. You listen to a certain band, you listen to a certain song. Music is powerful. It's very therapeutic, and for those of you who just caught on to the whole music thing, it just there's a song for any type of situation that happens out there, and you can just go and find it, and it's very therapeutic. So I recommend music therapy for anyone.
Music therapy today with the Brummster and Jay Gepner, my special guest on Rock Stories with the Brummster podcast. Again, catch it at rockradio559.com and the Brummster Spotify channel. Jay, being a DJ for almost nearly 30 years, had a lot of access to meeting some of these cool rock stars behind the scenes, right? And so you too, you're an entertainer and you've traveled the world. Was that your end to meet a lot of these cool stars?
Yeah.
Who have you met, Jay? Who have you had the pleasure of meeting, or vice versa? Who had the pleasure of meeting you?
Okay, well, being a musician and being a fan first, I was always a big Beatles fan. So, of course, when a Beatle comes to town, now I live in Chicago, Illinois. And in fact, you want to hear something funny right now, Brummster, is it's snowing here. So I know you're on the West Coast, but it's actually snowing. I'm looking outside at snowflakes right now. And geez, it's already April. We're in April here. So. But yeah, no, one of the great things about loving music is when a Beatle comes to town, comes to Chicago, and the first time I actually had a chance to where I was of age was Paul McCartney came to Chicago in 1984 to do a press conference. So I was like, wow, I have to figure out a way to meet this guy. This is, everything that I've grown up listening to the Beatles, singing all these Beatles songs and bands, and as a youngster, so I had to figure out a way. And I found out where his press conference was, and of course, I was at the press conference and got to say hello and got to meet him, and gave me his autograph. Very sweet. And every time I seen him, I always had flowers for his wife, Linda. So the thing was that I've learned after meeting him so many times is, whenever Paul is somewhere, everybody pretty much charges at Paul. So after seeing and witnessing the first time that I met him, the next time I had flowers for Linda. So I have these roses for Linda. So I go to Linda, everybody's attacking Paul pretty much. And there I am, just me and Linda talking, saying, hello, welcome to Chicago. And you say, you look very beautiful, Linda. And she's like, oh, thank you for the flowers. And then Paul eventually comes up, says, okay, all right, who's this guy? All right, who's this guy? And then I get to say, Paul, I'm Jay Gepner, nice to meet you. And that's how it happened. And then every time Paul's come to Chicago, I know you always got flowers for my wife, So from that point on, it was great. And I did that not only with Paul, but with, quite a few different other, rock and rollers when they come to town. So.
How smart, because that's the problem. People automatically attack these people, not attack, but go after them.
They crowd around them, and it gets pushy and it gets crowded. And, sure enough, there's, Linda all alone. And, and I actually, was able to strike up a great conversation and a relationship with her. She was a real sweetheart. The few times that I got to meet her, she was always very sweet. And same with Paul. Paul was great. Paul was always asking how my band was doing. He kind of knew I was in the music thing because, after the years of all the time meeting him, he'd autograph my Goepner bass, and he'd go, how's the band doing? I go, oh, great, Paul. Really personal guy. He was just, so excited. I mean, the goosebumps were going the first time. I was just so excited. I was like 21 the first time. I was 21 years old, and by seeing Paul and meeting the Beatle, I was just there in every movie and every album, and I'm like, wow, this is the guy.
Yeah, so. and unlike other fans that are just all about him, you're being respectful to the person that's the most important person in his life, his wife. That probably had to make him turn his head and go, I like that. This guy's being cool.
Yeah, well, I learned from the first time, of people just charging and seeing him, and I'm like, oh wow, and I was like, you know what, Linda's always with him. I got to have something for her. So then I eventually, I learned from watching it the first time and actually seeing it and being excited to actually like, okay, next time he comes, if I get that chance, I'm going to be ready and I'm going to have something for Linda, and because she's there all alone, everybody's there saying hi to him. It it was a good thing. It got me into actually, he goes, okay, who's this guy now? So I actually Paul and Jay Gepner, I actually had my chance to say who the hell I was. So it was kind of cool.
Right, as opposed to just hi, picture hi. Oh,
yeah,
it's personal.
Okay, who's this guy being, with the flowers with my wife now, okay? Okay, who's this guy, Romeo, okay? Like it was good. It was really cool, so. And you could tell that he appreciated that. Somebody recognized his wife and said hello to her, and because there's mostly all girls screaming for him. So.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, as an entertainer, you're in a band or several bands over the years, and what was the entertainment key that got you in the keyhole to meet some of these stars that we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I always did like a tribute to John Lennon. That was my hero. So fortunately, it got me many great heights. I performed in Liverpool. And when I performed in Liverpool, England, it opened the gates for me to get invited to all these different events around the world, all these Beatle events. So, I got to play in Stockholm, Sweden, and Finland, and Ireland, and Rome, Italy, and just 20 countries around the world from just performing the John Lennon thing. And what's great is I perform with the bands of each country that I visit. So it's really cool. So I get invited out, and we do the John Lennon tribute shows in each country, but it's always with the band from that country. So I was very blessed and fortunate to do that. And so from doing that, I got kind of known from playing theaters here in Chicago and playing different events. So when a band like the Rolling Stones comes to Chicago, a guy backstage will recognize me and say, hey, there's a meet and greet. Would you like to say hello? And then I'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. They very nice people reaching out and saying, hey, why don't you, who recognized me from performing? And they know that I'm a fan. So they're like, oh, yeah, come on backstage and say hello. So, not only in a band, but I'm just a big fan of just the whole music scene, the whole, rock and roll and everybody in it.
So how did that go when you met the Stones? What was that like?
That was fun because, being a big Beatles fan, I was always awed by the Beatles, so the Stones, it was exciting because, just Mick Jagger, just unbelievable performer, and me being a vocalist just had so much admiration for him. So I was very excited, and they were just very cool. I didn't have anything for them to sign, although Mick did sign a picture that I had, and he was really, really cool and really nice about it. So yeah, it was cool. It's kind of, you turn into a nerd, you want to kind of be cool, but you kind of want to tell them like, I love you guys,
You're the best.
Yeah. It's like, you listen to records, you see all the videos, and you remember all the times growing up and hearing the songs, and then there they are in front of you, and you geek out. At least I do. And I don't mind being a geek because first of all, I'm a fan, and then of course I do my music thing, but I'm always a fan. I'm always very, just admire all the true genius of all these greats, from whether it be the Who or, the Beach Boys, and just, there's so many. There's, had the great opportunity of actually performing with Roger Daltrey, who was like my idol, a singing idol.
What'd you play with him?
Yeah, I actually played with him. We did a show, 2 shows together in Seattle, Washington, at the Snoqualmie Casino. They have a big stage out there, and what it was there was a big John Lennon tribute, and Alan White, who's the drummer from Yes and also the drummer of John Lennon's, happened to be at the Cavern one night, and I was performing there, and all of a sudden I'm singing. I sang the song Instant Karma, and Alan White, who played drums on that song, came up to the stage, and he asked me, "Hey, can you do that song over again? I want to play it with you." So that was like, I mean, that was an out-of-body experience for me, because first of all, wow, Alan White is here at my show, and now he's jumping on the drums, and God, he's playing with me. The same guy who played the drums on Instant Karma for John Lennon is now playing it for me, so.
It'd be just like me getting to DJ a morning show with Wolfman Jack or something, I mean, how that must have felt. Wow, man.
Yeah. And plus you performing in Liverpool, it's like you're in the Holy Land. Like for me, being this Beatle geek, and being this, guy who loves the Beatles, first you're in awe playing the Cavern Club and all these. So already you're feeling just the juices and feeling the just the great mojo and vibe of being in the hometown of your heroes. And then when you're singing, and all of a sudden, and Alan White comes out of the crowd and wants to play drums with you, you just, it's I think of it and I'm like, wow, I kept it together pretty good. I didn't, because I'm up on stage, I didn't quite think of it, but later you think, wow, that
actually happened, right? That kind of a reality check.
Yeah. And from that, Alan and I became very good friends, and Alan was throwing this big fundraiser in Seattle, and he had all these different musicians coming, Roger Daltrey, Dave Matthews, Natasha Bedingfield, and he happened to ask me, who's a nobody, to play at this benefit with him, and it was kind of a tribute to John Lennon. So not only did I get to meet my a superstar idol, Roger Daltrey, but I actually got to sing and perform with him too. So it really was quite a fun trip.
Wow, a fun trip it is down rock and roll memory lane. Brummster here, Rock Stories with the Brummster. Jay Gepner, our guest on the show today. Did you mention in our green room earlier, chatting with me, something about Elton John? Really?
Well, Elton John, I actually got to meet him twice. Once he was coming to Chicago, so I knew where he was staying, because people would say, "Hey, you're performing tonight." Yeah, I was performing the same night as Elton, so I couldn't go to a show, but I knew where he was staying. So all of a sudden, before he was leaving for his show, I was there at the hotel, and he happened to be coming out, and I got to talk with him a little bit as he was waiting for his car to pick up. I'm like, "Elton, I'm a big fan, and I just love you and loved you for years." And I go, "But I'm an even bigger fan of John Lennon's." And so all of a sudden, Elton and I were talked the whole time about John, and he told me some great things. He told me, he goes, John was his just a great friend and like a big brother to him, and he admired him so much. And he goes, "Don't believe the books and all the stuff that are coming out about him." He goes,
"What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What did he mean?"
Well, at the time, there was a Ray Coleman book that came out that was kind of like a character assassination to John. It said there was some off stuff that was being said by Ray, like he had a personal vendetta against John or something like that. But there was some stuff that was in the book that's kind of like, but so Elton was just saying, "Hey, don't believe all the stuff that's going on. I knew John. He was a great man." So that was cool. And then he told me a funny story. He goes, when, Elton John and John Lennon made that bet with the song, "Whatever Gets You Through the Night." And John Lennon, if you're a DJ, so you would know, it's on the Walls and Bridges album. And John Lennon asked Elton if he would sing on his album, and Elton said sure. So John Lennon gave him like 10 songs to listen to. So Elton picked "Whatever Gets You Through the Night," And John said, "Oh, you got to be kidding me, Elton. I was going to throw that song. That's a throwaway." And he goes, "No, John, that song's the number one song." So John's like, "Really?" So they recorded it, and he goes, "This is the number one. This is the number one song, John." And he goes, "When it turns number one, you got to jump on stage with me." John Lennon had no number one songs as a solo album, as a solo artist at this time. And it's already 1974. So the Beatles were broken up in 1970. So the solo career, John had, and it's unbelievable to think, but Imagine was not a number one song, but, even though it's like voted one of the most influential songs, but John had no number one song at this time.
Yeah, and George and Paul already had they both had number ones already.
Yes, they did.
My Sweet Lord and Paul, I can't remember what was his number one that he came out.
He had quite a few of them.
But by 1974, everyone had already hit number one, huh?
Yeah, he had Band on the Run. He had the Jet. Yeah, so Paul was on fire. So hit after hit. So John didn't believe Elton, so he goes, "Well, this is an easy bet." But so when I was talking to Elton, he goes, it was funny because John was so nervous. And he looked almost sick. He was like backstage before it was Thanksgiving night, 1974, at Madison Square Garden, and John Lennon's song "Whatever Gets You Through the Night" was the number one song at the time. So Elton was there and said, "You got to come out tonight, John." So John was backstage, and Elton said he looked so scared, like he didn't know, I think he was throwing up, and he said, but he goes, "When I introduced John, it was the biggest roar, loudest crowd noise, and he's heard a lot of great crowds." He said, the noise, the scream, the admiration for John was incredible. He's never to this day heard a sound so loud as that night when John came on stage. And if I could pick one concert where I could say I'd love to be at, that would be the show. I would say, you know how people talk and say, "What concert would you love to see?" I would love to see that Elton John show that Thanksgiving night in 1974 when he called up John and they did those few songs together, because it was pure magic, and it made John, it was a very special night for John, because he was separated with Yoko at the time, and Yoko was there. Elton had Yoko there in the second row, and after that night, John and Yoko got together again, and we know what happened after that. They had Sean, and then John was retired, and then we know what happens after that. But such a big, important night, and what a great show. If you ever talk about concerts, Madison Square Garden, 1974, Elton, that was, and Elton shared that story with me, and it was just so cool that here I said, "Elton, you're great, and I love you," but we were talking about John, and it was great. It was a great connection.
Right. It almost made you like two personal friends chatting about someone else versus the normal treating Elton like a god, like everyone in the whole world was at the time. He probably enjoyed that conversation. And when he talks about John, he's talking about John as a friend, not just as someone up on a pedestal, huh?
Yeah, well, it was great that he shared that, because, I think of that part so often, because I said, "Oh, I love you, John. Elton, I'm a big fan of yours." But then I went right into the John Lennon thing, and I'm like Chris Farley now, thinking back at it, like, "Oh, why did I do that? I should have been talking about,
That's right.
I should have talked about like an Elton album, one of my favorite albums, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, one of my favorite songs. Yeah, I should have been talking about that, but I didn't, So I felt like Chris Farley in a way,
But believe it or not, it actually endeared Elton to you more so than talking about himself would have. So it actually worked out for the best. And I bet you he still remembers the conversation, well, maybe not. Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, No, but you know what? I did meet him a few years later. I had the great fortune of being in 1999 when Paul McCartney was being inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I was actually there at the Waldorf Astoria, and I got to witness that. So I got to see Elton and Paul all come in. So when I saw Elton, I mentioned that and said, "Hi, I met you a few years ago. We were talking about John Lennon." He goes, "Oh, yeah. You know, and whether he believed it or not, what he did was he made it very pleasant to make me feel like he did remember it. So, you know, whether if he remembered it at all, it was a very nice feeling of just saying, hey,
and you talk about John like throwing up and the nerves before going on stage with Elton. John Lennon's back there. He's got all these butterflies and it makes me wonder because he's a human being just like all of us and he's doubting himself almost. I mean, I did it with the Beatles. You know, I've got some songs out there, but I haven't hit a number one. Now here's a number one. So until he actually goes out and receives the roar from Madison Square Garden crowd, it's kind of as confirmation. He's still doubting himself as the artist inside backstage, you know, puking and stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, very, very good point. I kind of get a little teary kind of thinking of that because, John was, he was cocky in one way as a songwriter, but then he was, all songwriters and musicians have their insecurities too. So after the Beatles breakup, John was kind of feeling like after he got in that trouble in California on they called it the Lost Weekend, and he got thrown out of a Tommy Smothers show, and he just thought kind of like people hated him because he was getting in trouble. He had this thing that because of the Yoko thing that, people didn't like him as much as they did when he was a Beatle. He had that insecurity. So, one of the things Elton said that I forgot to mention was just that roar that John got, that 10-minute ovation that he got when he walked on that stage. He said the look on John's face was like, wow, these people actually like me. It was kind of like, of course you're a Beatle, John. You are John Lennon, So that night had so many highs, not only for the people who were there, but just for Elton too. You could tell that he was really like moved by that whole experience that he had, that he was that was the last time John Lennon was ever on stage live, where anybody could see him perform. So
wow,
whoever had a ticket for that one was
really showed his humanity too.
Oh
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
We can relate with a human being that bleeds and has pain and gets sad and gets happy, but it's hard to relate with the rock stars when all you ever see is just the rock star part of them. But we remember they're all human beings too. And wow, thanks for sharing these awesome stories today.
No problem, Brummster. Yeah, no, this is a great show. I'm very excited to listen to some of your podcasts and your some of your other guests. I'm excited to come and talk as a fan. I was very fortunate to see so many great concerts that, just rattling off from Paul to Ringo to Rolling Stones to Who, ELO, Queen, Monkees, Green Day, Neil Young. Oh, I saw Paul McCartney one night with Tony Bennett and Neil Young, all on the same bill with the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Eddie Vedder, all in one night in your neck of the woods over in California.
That is diverse right there. That is a diverse set right there.
They called it the School of Rock or the school concert. Neil Young was doing a benefit concert for, I believe, for his kid, and they called it the school concert. But yeah, talk about, they had Tony Bennett there. So I'm actually in San Francisco watching him sing I Left My Heart in San Francisco. So right there's a highlight. And then Paul came up and sang a song with Tony. Then Paul came out and sang a few songs with his band. And then Neil Young was there, and Los Lonely Boys. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Oh,
Los
yeah.
Lonely Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were on the bill. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were on the bill. There were so many people. Eddie Vedder was on the bill. Just an incredible night of being outside in the beautiful San Francisco area and hearing all this great, great music. And talk about, wow, just like saying, God, someone pinch me. I can't believe I'm here.
Wake me up. Wake me up.
Wake me up. Yeah, no, I know. That's just a beautiful, beautiful memories, man. It's just, what was one of your favorite concerts that you went to?
Well, as a DJ, I got to meet and interview a lot of, killer rockers.
I bet.
Ted Nugent, Gene Simmons, Styx, JY, and Tommy Shaw.
Some of those guys I see all the time now. By the morning, I load airplanes for American Airlines, and then by nighttime, I'm a singing whore. But I see a lot of those guys. I see Ted Nugent. I see all of the Styx guys. They're all coming through Chicago all the time. And some of them actually call me up to watch their guitars, make sure their guitars get on planes good, So I do have a good line with some of those guys. Ted Nugent, mainly it's his, he's a hunter. So he always wants to know if his gun is on the plane. Of course, in the baggage area, everybody, he doesn't carry one on the plane with him, but he does travel.
Although I'm sure he could be a sky marshal. I'm sure he qualifies, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Quite scary. So, so I do have a great thing with that, too. But, even as a kid, when one of the great concerts that I went to in Chicago, they used to have this festival called Chicago Fest, and it was at Navy Pier in Chicago. I don't know if you're familiar with Chicago at all, but Navy Pier was like really grungy and really kind of old, but it was cool. And they set up all these stages around. And in the late 70s, they had all these different concerts. And one of the bands that I saw there was Cheap Trick. And I was like 14 years old. I think it might have been 1977 or 78. I got to figure out the year, but all of a sudden Cheap Trick is playing, and then Rick Nielsen holds up his guitar and he flips it over, and there's a painting of the Beatles on there. And he rips into the song Day Tripper. And me being 14 years old and being a Beatles fan, I'm like, oh my God, it was like so great because I love Cheap Trick. And now they're showing me that they're big Beatle fans, and then they're doing Day Tripper. And I was a fan from that point on, really big into that. And one of the great stories is if a little bird came into my ear and told me, hey, you're going to know these guys one day and be on stage with Cheap Trick. Later in life, Cheap Trick asked me to be their background singer when they do their Sgt. Pepper shows in Las Vegas and in New York. So I also had a great experience a few months on the road with those guys. So I've been very lucky and fortunate and very blessed to do that.
So you're 14 and you're rocking with Cheap Trick out in the audience, just rocking out to the killer concert at Chicagoland, and then all Chicago Fest, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like years later, you're singing backup with Cheap Trick in a tribute to the Beatles. Oh, that is so cool. That is like full circle. Full circle. Yeah. That's what Dave Grohl always says when he talks about how the Beatles were like his inspiration for music, and then it just full circle. He's hanging out with Paul McCartney having pizza at his house.
Right.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. No, I know. It was unbelievable, and Rick Nielsen has become very close friends to where it's funny because every year on my birthday, Rick Nielsen will text me and say happy birthday, and it's funny because every year, and I kid with my wife, and I even joke with my dad that, my own family forgets when it's my birthday, and this guy here, every year I get that text from him. So it's just to show you how much of a beautiful guy he is. He's so super cool, and all them guys in Cheap Trick are just great. And just having that magical moment and that memory is just so great, because every time I'm either with them, I think of that time of being that 14-year-old kid in the crowd screaming at their show.
Right. And now full circle, you guys are friends. He texts you for your birthday. That is so rad.
No, he's super cool guy. Super cool. So,
well, you are too. Guys, thanks for sharing all these great memories. I know you have 1,000 more. Is there, before we let you go, is there anything else that you had on your mind that, as far as a memory that maybe we haven't touched on yet? I know you probably got 100 of them.
Oh, well, no, just, every time, just being just a fan of the music, the last few years with the COVID thing, it's just, it's been weird performing in front of screens and and it's great that live music is coming back, and for all your listeners out there, that, and get out there, and no matter who it is, whether if it's a neighborhood band or whatever, get out there and just start enjoying live music again. That's what I.
If folks wanted to check you out in one or more of your bands and check out some of your music, where do you play? Where do you play at?
Well, I play mostly in the Chicago area, but I do get around in the country. I have a few things coming up where I'm playing. The international shows are coming back, so I'll be in Finland again, in Finland and Helsinki in May, and then be going to Liverpool, England in August, and then back to Sweden in September. So, there's a whole bunch of things going on. But if anybody wants to know, the best thing is just the Jay Gepner. Just go to YouTube. Probably be the best thing if you want to see a whole bunch of stuff that I'm involved with. Some of it's my own music. Some of it's all the John Lennon stuff that I do. But if you just go to YouTube and put my name in there, Jay Gepner, JayGoeppner, and just have fun with it, and there's ways and also I'm on Facebook too, so the same name. So,
all right, thanks for joining us, Jay.
Thank you, Brummster. Thank you so much.
So
what's so cool?
What's your next? Is Paul? I chatted all Easter with Aunt Sue, and she didn't mention when the next show was, and so I figured I'd ask you, when are you all planning to meet up again? You basically go see Paul wherever he goes, right?
Yeah, well, Paul, yeah, exactly. I'm actually thinking about trying to get to that, that beautiful SoFi Stadium that you have there on the West Coast there in Los Angeles. Paul McCartney's playing there on Sunday, May 13th. So I may try to get in for that. I have a show on the 12th, so that's the only problem is I'm playing on the 12th, so I'd have to fly in that Sunday morning and just, get a ticket or do whatever. But I'm in the works of doing that because Paul announced the first leg of his tour, and he's doing the West Coast and the East Coast. But for us Midwest guys, there's nothing yet. But I'm sure he's just going to try to see how those shows go first. I'm sure he'll be adding more dates.
Yeah, but, take the red eye and get out there, right?
Exactly. Well, you're the radio business, and you know how it goes. Rock and roll, right?
Rock and roll, man. Jay Gepner, my guest today, Rock Stories with the Brummster. Jay, God bless you, and thank you for rocking with us today and being a guest on our show and pulling back the curtain for our fans, brother.
Thank you very much, Brummster. I had a great time, man. You got my number. Anytime you want to chat music again, you just give me a call. Thanks.
Right on. Hang on the line for our engineers, Jay. This is the Brummster pulling back the curtain. Real rock stories from the Brummster. Rock Stories with the Brummster at rockradio559.com every Sunday at 11 Pacific Standard Time and on demand at the Brummster Spotify channel. That is the Brummster with 2 M's. Also as well, don't forget, would you like to get a fresh, brand new, for free Rock Stories with the Brummster? It's not just available there. You can be an FOB, a friend of the Brummster, and get it for free at the Brummster Facebook page. And don't forget, again, more free stuff. A free Today in Rock History with the Brummster every single day. Today in Rock History, this happened, that happened, etc. Go to YouTube and type in Today in Rock History, and you just get a generic Today in Rock History that might have been recorded 5 years ago. But if you type in Today in Rock History with the Brummster, 2 M's, then you'll get a free, fresh, brand new, applicable to that day that you're looking at it every single day. Today in Rock History with the Brummster YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a rockin' day. Thanks for joining us. We've got more great rock stories with the Brummster, again, available at rockradio559.com and also as well at the Brummster Spotify channel. Have a great week. Rock on.